Well, hello, it's Paul Chek, and welcome back to my mini-series called Mind-Body Connection. Today is part 5, which is Mind-Body Integration. We've come a long way so far. I hope you've been enjoying this series. I'll preface today's discussion with reminding you that a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, in a basic format that's understandable and presented in a way that integrates it with the concepts that need to be mastered if one wants to learn how to eat, move, and be healthy. The area where I talk about the chakras are referred to as zones in this book, Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. On page 100 you see the breakdown of the muscles related to each chakra, the related functions related to each chakra. And then on page 101 you can see the related functions or psychological components so that you can see what it means from a psychological perspective when you have problems or challenges in key energy centers or chakras. And then in my chapter on stress, I show you a lot about what are the common causes of people's stress. I'll kind of iterate those things briefly today, but there's a lot for you in here if you don't have this book. And remember, the book is a system, so it's designed so you follow the steps so you can get your unique individualized self-help program and learn how to take care of yourself. And I would say 90% of all the people that come to me with serious health challenges and disease can completely rehabilitate themselves just by what's in this book alone. Largely what I do is just teach people how to apply the information in this book. So here you go. Many people say, "Paul, you're so expensive. I can't afford you. I can't afford a Chek practitioner." Good. $24.95 on Amazon. You can do it yourself, most of it. So I hope I've inspired you to read up and practice. Okay. So today we're going to talk about mind-body integration. We've come a long ways. We began with unconditional love, then we got into the Holy Trinity, which is the extraction of potential to create existence or reality. We talked about the qualities in brief of Tai Chi. I go into this much deeper in my holistic lifestyle coaching program. Then we got down here and we looked at how this functionality or the mind of the universe becomes an individual pursuit, and we looked at how our potential is the potential of unconditional love, and we then looked at how this triad of extracting potential as an individual experience is very, very related to the archetypes that we're pursuing consciously or unconsciously. And we looked at, in the next series or next edition, at how the myth relates to the archetypes and how the core values of the archetypes or the dream relate to the myths and one's perceptive experience. What do you perceive as happening in your life? And so now we are ready to look at the integration of the mind and the body as a working, shall we say, life system or an expression of life as human beings. Today I'm going to begin with a definition of mind that really is a very, very beautiful definition of mind, and it relates to the human mind as opposed to, say, the universal mind, although what's said here is true of the universal mind as well. This definition comes from Daniel Siegel M.D., whose works, by the way, are excellent. I highly recommend The Neurobiology of We. I can't think of the rest of his titles right now, but they're all good. I've been through several of them, and I highly recommend you just look up Dan Siegel's. He's got a great website, and as a psychiatrist, he gives me hope for the medical profession. He really does. It's good to know there's medical doctors that are this wise and this grounded and this capable of teaching truth to people. His definition of mind: an embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information. Let's look at that. An embodied process. your mind, your individual mind, your ego, and your personal unconscious are essentially an embodied process. Remember, the word ego means border, barrier, or self-definition. I am Paul Chek. This is my border, my barrier, my self-definition. Therefore, my mind is a unit that functions within the universal mind. Your thoughts are the universe's thoughts, is what I'm saying. Your experience is the universe's experience. So one, we must remember that mind is an embodied process. This is where the metaphysical saying, as above, so below, comes from. It means your thoughts and your choices are the impetus by which behaviors or actions take place, and those thoughts, choices, and behaviors become the governing influences that determine the state that your body is in. The field of psychoneuroimmunology has gone a long ways to demonstrating beyond a shadow of a doubt that our mind, our thoughts, and our emotions can either heal us or give us diseases and kill us. And Deepak Chopra is one person who's shared tons of information in that regard if you want another resource. Now, an embodied process. A process is something that is occurring. It's not a stagnant thing. Life is a process. In the last edition, when we talked about myths, I talked about one of the functions of a myth is to guide a person through the process of going from being born all the way to death. That's the process. That's called the life process, and there's definite stages, and these are the kinds of things I talk about in Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 3, because the way you coach people at different stages of their life is very different. Mind is an embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information. Your choices regulate the flow of energy and information. What do you do to gain energy? What do you eat? How do you sleep? Do you do Tai Chi? Do you do Qigong? Do you work in? All these things all boil down to choices. So your mind is an embodied process, and your choices regulate the flow of energy and information. Notice I have information underlined as 2 words. Something that's very important at this time in the development of our species. We came out of the industrial age into the information age. We are just now moving out of the information age into what's being called the conceptual age. We are still deep, deep, deep in the information age. A side effect of the information age, for example, is people that read books like the Bible, the Quran, or any book, and they believe the word written on paper as though it was the gospel of God. But remember, whenever you start deifying information above and beyond experience, you open the door wide for very, very significant levels of confusion and beliefs that are very, very dangerous because they're believed to be factual without being true. For example, there is piles of so-called science backing the use of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, rodenticides, and all sorts of chemicals that are killing you. And many people who are medical doctors and people that should know better have deified the information on a piece of paper without really doing any investigations and just accepting the fact that because someone has PhD or MD or DSC behind their name that they actually know what they're talking about. Many of us believe that nutritionists are experts in nutrition, but I can tell you firsthand from teaching many of them and having them as patients, hardly any nutritionist I've ever met knows a thing about the physiology and the functional mechanics of the soil, which is the basis of nutrition itself. So what do we have? We have all sorts of articles about take this pill for this problem, do this for that, and we've got a bunch of people that are eating pills like it's going out of style, and they're the sickest, most unhealthy and unhappy people that they've ever been. Why? Because we're deifying information as though it was more real than the experience, and the experience that you're having is the truth. I often say, if you want to determine who you should use as a doctor or a therapist, ask the doctor or the therapist to get undressed for you so you can see the results of their program And remember, their mind is embodied as a process that regulates the flow of their own energy and their own information. So to the degree you're asking for someone for help with your body or your emotions or your mind, it is wise to make sure that the person that you're asking for help exemplifies the direction you want to go in, or you are deifying their words. You might as well be talking to a wall or a speaker or a computer, but you won't be talking to a person with wisdom. Wisdom wears itself, period. Okay? The word information means in formation. Soldiers march in formation because it saves energy and because it trains them to act as a functional unit. It's a method for dissolving the ego. It's not freestyle dancing out there. It's moving in step, and there is a code of conduct that allows a general or an admiral to channel the flow of energy and information reliably and know what's going to happen. When you take in more information than you can actually integrate and use effectively, you're not in formation, you're in chaos, and chaos stops the learning process and elevates stress levels very, very high. My teachings are quite simple. Anyone that's done training with me, yes, there's complexities to them. To understand what all this stuff is takes a committed student. But the actual practical basis of what I'm teaching, I can teach to kids and do all the time, and they learn it very quickly and very easily. It's their parents that are often the royal pain in the backside. But I charge enough that it's worth it. I give it away on YouTube in hopes that you won't need to pay me. And I hope that you don't come to me for help or someone like me and end up asking the same questions and making the same mistakes that I've been talking about for years for free, because then I have no fear and no remorse about taking your money. So with that said, now that we understand that mind is an embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information, let's take a quick look now at what happens when this flows down into this. This is the source of all information and all energy. This is how it is created. This is how it relates to your body-mind construct. You have the same potential of the universe because you are the universe. And remember, God cannot say no, or you don't have a God. You've got an idea. Ideas exist here, but for every is, there's an isn't. So once you know that your potential is whatever you want it to be, then you begin the hero's journey, and that's what life is all about. If it was easy, there'd be no sense of gratitude for accomplishment. So, hey, dig it. When you are in a labor of love, you always have love to support you. But when you're just doing what you think you got to do because someone else told you to do, you're always going to be in a state of chaos, and eventually you'll be in denial of your own dreams, and you will just settle for money and probably spend most of it on medical doctors. Let's look now at this mind-body integration. These circles represent energy centers or vortexes called chakras. Chakra means wheel or vortex. In my holistic lifestyle coaching, I go much more advanced than this. If you read books, I've probably got about 100 books on the subject here. What you're going to find is credible authors all over the world don't agree on almost everything in any field, including the chakras. So this is just an overarching sort of generalization of themes, which is really just an invitation for you to become aware and start paying attention so you can find out what's real for you. We basically are broken down into different structures. The third, second, and first chakra deal with what's called the reptilian mind or our survival instincts. I call this the animal chakras. Here we have the chakras that are directly related to the biological instincts of the reptilian mind, because the reptile as a creature is a creature that has a brain structure that's pretty much identical to our brain stem and spinal cord. A mammal has a more developed limbic emotional system, and the human goes beyond most mammals with a neocortical system that gives it novel thought, the ability to think in abstract terms, to deal with paradoxes, and to be highly creative for better or for worse. Making a nuclear weapon or a nuclear power plant is highly creative, but it may not be for the better, as we now know. So when we're looking at the reptilian mind and the survival drives, if you want to read more about this, the man who did about 25 years of research on this is Paul MacLean. Look under Paul MacLean, Man's Triune Mind, and you will see very solid research backing this stuff. And it's in my book, by the way. The reptilian mind, or the reptilian drives, which are the base of our biological instincts, our core biological survival instincts emerge from the reptilian mind and are rooted here in these three chakras. And the reptilian drives that are the survival drives in all of us are, first, all animals in nature must make sure that they are safe and secure. For example, a dog always knows its territory. Dogs will go through the house, go through the yard, they will pee in every corner, they'll make sure that their territory is well marked, and they will monitor that territory. Cats will do it, birds will do it. Listen, all you got to do is watch blackbirds go invade trees, and you'll see the birds going crazy because the blackbirds are the bird mafia. They like to steal everything and take over everything. And you see that there is territorial battles going on. Blackbirds and hawks are at each other all the time. Unfortunately, the blackbirds get their asses kicked. It's fun to watch. What's my point? The point is safety and security is our first biological instinct. And today, safety and security means, do I have enough money to pay the bills? Do I have enough money to feed myself? Instead of going hunting to feed yourself and create safety and security, you go to work and you go to the supermarket and the hunting's been done for you. Once the reptile has a sense of safety and security, its next drive is to feed itself. So it goes up here to the digestion metabolism center, the third chakra, which is the center of personal power and self-will. So here we are dealing with our sense of safety and security. Here we're dealing with, who am I? What's my function in the world? But the biological drive here is to acquire sustenance, to keep your body healthy and alive, to feed what is natural for your body type. Once the reptile's safe and secure and has eaten, then and only then does it entertain the sex urge or the procreative urge. Because think about it, in nature, if you were having sex when you weren't safe and secure and popping out babies and you couldn't feed them, you'd have a big problem. That would be the extinction of species. Human beings are the only creatures that wake up, have sex when they're broke, eat garbage, end up taking Viagra by the time they're 20 or so, and can't figure out why their life's all screwed up, their body's all screwed up, and they got all these mental, emotional disorders. The reality of it is though, as bad as many people do not want to buy into the concept that they are living in an animal body, we are. It's so proven in anatomy, physiology, comparative anatomy. It's a joke. You're in an animal body. Dig it. I dig it. But we're human. So the way to do that is master your animal so it's not constantly biting at your heels all the time. So the reptilian mind relates to the yin aspects of the body, the earthly aspects. So you could put a square on that and it would be symbolically correct. The heart is for the center for giving and receiving love. Now, if you study the science of the chakra system, and I would look at the book Subtle Energy Anatomy, or Encyclopedia of Subtle Energy Anatomy by Cynthia Dale, it goes into all of this stuff all the way to hard rocket science. So nothing I'm sharing with you is airy-fairy stuff. And if you think it is, it just means you're overly opinionated and understudied. So in the chakra system, what we see is that we learn each of these are psychological themes that are related to our growth and development, And if a human being grows and develops in a normal flow, we go through each of these periods of growth and development in 7-year cycles. So the first 7 years, a child's orientation is to learn what it means to be safe and secure in a body, in a family, in a society, in a culture, and in a world. Then it reaches the period around the time of the second chakra, near 14, somewhere between 7 and 14, puberty begins. So now we're learning about what are these parts for and what happens when you touch them, what happens if you don't, you know, all these things. What are they for? How do they work? But this center here is often misunderstood to mean sex energy as the energy for copulating. That's a very big misunderstanding of the chakra system. Sex energy here is this energy in your body. This is the home of your creative life force energy. This is where you either cultivate enough energy to run your body and your mind, or you don't. And if you don't, you will have chronic fatigue problems, you will have illnesses, and you will have diseases. And the adrenal glands are the chief indicators of your capacity to regulate your utilization of creative sex energy relative to accumulation. In other words, if you overutilize, overexercise, overthink, overwork, it means you're not paying attention to what's going on inside of yourself, so your injury is actually a gift to wake you up. So giving and receiving love then would be the fourth cycle of your 7 years, where the theme is learning to master what's called we relationships. Notice this is all about you. Now you have to focus on mastering relationships with other people, because once you get to here in a tribal culture, you're supposed to know what your function in the tribe is. You will have already gone through an initiation ceremony. You will have already become an adult by tribal rights, and you will then have a function in the tribe. You will either be somebody who works with the animals, whatever your specialty is, weaving, spinning, hunting, tool making. By the time you get here in a tribal society, you already know who you are supposed to become as an individual, but to be that in a tribe, you have to be able to work effectively with other individuals, whether it be a family, a tribe, a business, a society. Our culture, as I've mentioned earlier, is really dangerously trapped down here. I'd say the center of gravity of society is right about where the belly button is. They're caught between, it's all about me, and I want to get laid, and I'll go broke trying to look good and get laid, and that's about as far as it goes. So you got people making $35,000 a year, living in an apartment, driving a $50,000 car, eating at McDonald's because they can't afford real food. So there's an example of the dysfunction down here. This giving and receiving love relates to the mammalian development of the brain structure. Mammals begin to show affection to their children, and a chimpanzee mother will sacrifice her own life if it is necessary so that her children can survive. Yet a female reptile, if she cannot get enough food, will eat her own children, which is directly related to the fact that her limbic emotional centers are almost non-existent, so she doesn't even have an emotional connection to the children. If they don't go off and fend for themselves, they basically become food. Okay? So here we get into the mammalian class of brain development, which grows up into the top 3 chakras, which I call the angelic chakras. Without going into a long explanation, because it can get airy-fairy, angelic means forces that are pure. So thought is an energy, creativity is an energy, but we all have the potential to extract information through intuition, imagination, and constructive thinking, productive thinking, which is invisible. You know, much of the information is invisible. You might see it on your computer screen, but remember, it was invisible on the way. My point is, this is the realm up here of subtle energy. The subtle energy guides and directs the gross body energy. Your thoughts determine, your choices determine the composition of your biochemistry, the makeup of your body, how healthy or unhealthy you are. These chakras relate to the yang energy. Okay, so red, orange, yellow, those are yin. Green, is the marriage of the two, blue, indigo, violet. Those colors relate to yang energy. And what is yang? Think of fire. You can see the fire, but you do not see the warmth. That's what I mean by subtle energy. The wood is gross. The warmth is subtle. Metabolism, eating, is gross. We can measure that as heat. But when the warmth rises and stimulates thought, there's not much that you can use to measure that. You can see it as an after effect. When you're measuring someone's electroencephalograph, you might see activity in the brain, but you're seeing what the brain's doing with the invisible energy we call thought. So here we have our next block of 7 is related to creative self-expression and communication. This relates to the throat and the hands because we do a lot of expression and creation largely with our hands. Most people don't paint with their feet, they don't build with their feet, they stand on them, but the hands are connected to the throat, which is in between the head and the heart. So your creative energy in the 5th chakra is very linked into the head-heart system. Next we go up to the 6th chakra, which I relate to imagination. Now the 6th chakra relates to the brain and central nervous system, as does the 7th chakra, but I'm dealing more with the psychophysiological functions here. So the 6th chakra is the home of imagination. Imagination's absolutely critical if you want to be successful at creating happiness for yourself, because if you remember the last one, 2 sessions ago, where I talked about the archetypes, I showed you that there's 2 paths. There's the path of social development, which is the in-the-box path, which was, you know, your left-hand path, but it was the right-hand path to me over here. And then the hero's journey was the other path, where you go outside of the social box. Imagination is important because many of us feel confined in the box, and if we don't have an imagination, we can't create a sense of novelty for ourselves. Things get very flat, very boring. It'd be like being on an assembly line when you're really more creative than that. Imagination helps you grow your brain. People who use their imagination in their old age have been shown to not lose brain cells. People that just watch TV and go dead, their brains start to shrink. But people that use their imagination and actively pursue creative expression, such as knitting, art, any of these creative pursuits, they maintain a healthy brain right up till they die. Intuition means the access to information without cognitive thought. To use your intuition effectively means you have to achieve a level of mastery of your own thoughts and reach the point where you don't trust your own ideas so much and you're willing to explore the possibility of having a relationship with the universal mind. If you think, if you were to couple computers together and each computer contained different information, the more computers you coupled together, the bigger the brain you would create. When you use your intuition, you're not only accessing the mind of every human being on the planet, you're accessing every mind. You're accessing the mind of insects, birds, animals. You're accessing minds that we don't even know are minds. You're accessing the mind of Gaia, the planet, and you can access the mind of the sun, the moon, the stars, the whole thing. This is where geniuses operate. We call those people geniuses, and every one of us is a genius, and all you got to do to experience your genius is stop acting like people that don't express their genius because they've been conditioned not to. And if you want to understand why a lot of genius gets suppressed, I highly recommend, highly, in italics, Ken Wilber's book or audio book, A Brief History of Everything. That will explain a whole lot to you about the challenges we're all going through right now. So what we see then, in conclusion, is that this is the mind-body integration. This is psycho, soul. Soul and psyche mean the same thing. Consciousness, soul, integration. This is how it all works together. These are the themes that we all grow through. This is what it means to become a human being. When you make it to the heart and you're integrating the subtle forces of the cosmic mind with the intelligence of your body or your biological mind or your subconscious mind, and you work toward your dream and learn how to love yourself and other people, which means you work through all your shadow elements and you learn to become more aware of what is true and what is real in you, and you learn not to take things personally, and you learn that everyone's doing the best they can with the parental guidance they had in the environment that they came in, and you learn that we're all here on the same journey together. Remember, we're all on a spaceship called Earth. It's going 68,000 miles an hour and no one's at the wheel. None of us knows where we're going. So we're really in this thing together. And since it's been flying for a long time, but now we know it's dying because we have fallen in love with our fifth chakras, which is all about information in some regards. It's certainly about all the things I said, but if you get stuck right here, you believe words more than you believe experiences. When the words make it to here, you got something. When this and this and this connect up together as a system, you have what it takes to understand all of this. And the problem is, when you finally get it, a paradox emerges. It's impossible to tell people what's really going on, because until they get there themselves, they don't believe it. They just can't conceive of it. They can't believe of it. The whole point of your mythology is to keep you in awe of the mystery, and when somebody's in awe of the mystery, they're always interested in learning more about the mystery. It's like watching a grand magic trick. Some just walk away and go, wow, man, that was cool, and don't think about it anymore. But some of us go, how did the magician make the girl disappear? How did he cut her in half and put her back together? Because we know logically that's not possible, etc. The myth is what keeps you in awe. It gives you just enough knowledge about what's going on, but leaves you sort of at the cliffhanger. Is it really true? My mom says it's true. My dad says it's true. My uncle, my grandpa, my brother, the priest, the shaman, the wise man. Well, no matter how many times they tell you it's true, you can't even experience it with a belief alone. You have to go out and explore life. And I am telling you, the fastest way to find out the truth of yourself is to rise in love. Rise in love. Follow your dream. Don't be afraid to be different. There's only one of you. There will never be another one of you. Nobody will ever have your fingerprints on this planet ever again. Only you can decide how beautiful, good, truthful, loving, etc. that you are. And as long as you're happy, that's the most important thing. Your life will reflect back to you if you're in the right socio-cultural milieu for the person that you are. If you're experiencing pain for being honest about who you are, it just means you're in the wrong tribe. Use your imagination and your intuition and figure out where you belong. That's what it's all about. That is the hero's journey. This is the most marvelous thing that could have ever happened to you. And what happened to you happened to me and to everybody else, and we're all in this thing together. And I'll finish the series in my next one by sharing what I believe spiritual evolution really is and what that word actually means. So, just a reminder, start here. That'll get you ready for HLC 1. That'll also get you excited for Chek Exercise Coach. I've got tons of programs I've been talking about on all these blogs for years. feel free to start wherever you feel the most nourished. I look forward to sharing the last edition of this series with you next.